Finally, after lots of waiting, buying stuff, and buying more stuff, I am ready to start decaling. So this is going to be my first decal ever, and I picked an animated Phase 2 grunt. I'm not a professional. I don't know a whole lot about decals, but I would say if you're starting out, the animated Phase 2 grunt is about as simple as it gets. As you can see, there aren't very many decals. I've got the plain white body and helmet right here. And then I've got this 501st Trooper is just kind of a reference model because this is the same animated style Phase 2. Obviously, it doesn't have the blue markings and stuff, but you know, the general printing on the torso and helmet is roughly the same. Got all my tools over here, got some water, got some little stands and stuff over there. I'm not going to do a whole overview of all this. I'm going to save that for the tutorial once I get the hang of things and, you know, figure out how exactly to go about decaling. So this video is really just going to be my experience with my first decal. So after I'm done with this little intro, I'm going to set up the camera in a time lapse. You guys are actually going to watch me decal this minifigure. I think that's about everything I have to tell you guys, so it's time to start decaling. Here is the end result of round one. You know, not as good as I would have hoped, but still not terrible. Everything went on fairly smoothly. I think the biggest problem I had was you can see this guy's visor is a little bit crooked and I wasn't able to straighten it out. There's also a little bit of black there on the top where I wasn't able to cut all the black off of the decal, which is unfortunate. And I was thinking about fixing it or changing it, but I decided, you know what, this is my first one. I want to show you guys like truly what happened with my first experience. The torso turned out better. It looks pretty good. And the legs are all right. There is a little bit of excess plastic on the sides, which I'll probably have to trim off later. For some stupid reason, while I was filming the time lapse of this video, it only showed the helmet and then it wasn't recording for when I did the legs and torso. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decal another figure, but I'm going to start with the torso and legs. That way you guys will get the full time lapse of that. Hopefully the second one will turn out a little better. Then once all that's done, I'm going to spray the sealant on them. Here's a look at round 2. I'm much happier with how these turned out. It went a lot quicker, a lot smoother. However, doing this one made me realize I made a huge mistake with these legs, which you guys can probably obviously see. I put the decals on upside down. I was just so focused on the process and making sure, I cut them right and did everything else. I just forgot to make sure I put them on right side up. So I'm gonna have to take these off and reapply them, and then I'll finish up this helmet, and then we'll be good to spray them. Also, during the time lapse, sorry, I kind of did the front torso out of frame of the shot. It was kind of hard because I was zoomed in a little bit and I wasn't able to see where I was, so I do apologize for that. All right, it's time to view the finished product. So this guy right here is the first clone trooper I decaled. It turned out all right. I think the biggest mistake I made was on the helmet as far as decaling. It is a little bit crooked, and you can see I wasn't able to cut off all of the black outline, so there's a little bit up above the visor and down below it, but everything else turned out all right. I'm surprised at how well the pants turned out considering I put them on upside down the first time. I did much better in the second round with this guy. My hand was much more steady, and I kind of just had a general idea of how hard to push with the sponge and what to do with the tweezers. Just overall had a little bit more experience under my belt, so he turned out much better. And comparing them to the actual Lego version, I think they look really cool. If anything, the lines are a bit easier to see on the decaled one versus the Lego one. You can see like on the torso, the markings are just a little bit thinner, but all in all, I'm pleased with how they look. I did make one very critical error, however, and that is spraying way too much sealant on these minifigures. You can see right here down at the bottom, there's a big bubble right there of hardened sealant that kind of dropped down to the bottom and then pooled there and dried. That happened with this second minifigure as well, and I tried to scrape it off a little bit and that just made it look worse. So unfortunately, that kind of ruined these two clone troopers, but it was a good lesson for me to learn. All that being said, if I had to rate my decal experience, I would probably say it was a 7 to 7.5 out of 10. I actually really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun cutting out the decals, applying them, and it was cool to see the minifigure come together, and it's impressive, how a beginner like me can make a clone trooper turn out like this. There are some pros and cons with decaling. It is cheaper than buying a clone trooper. However, with the cheapness of the parts, comes the price of the time and effort. You have to also purchase all the tools I used and really have to set aside a decent amount of time to be able to do these. So this isn't one of those things where you can just grab some decals, throw a couple of clone troopers together. So I guess you have to be aware that even though you will be saving some money buying the parts for cheaper than if you're buying an actual minifigure, you will also have to pay that price of time. In total, these clone troopers cost $3.50 for the body, I think $2 for the helmet, and $1 for the decals. So that's a pretty good deal in my opinion. As far as recommending decaling to other people goes, I would say probably don't attempt this if you don't have a lot of time and a lot of patience, just because it takes a while to apply the decals and to get everything looking right. Thankfully, I did plan for mistakes a little bit. I bought probably one of the simplest clone troopers you can do as far as I am aware of, so it wasn't too much of a loss, even though they turned out kind of bad. I can now plan for the future and get better decals now that I'm a little bit better and I know what to do a little bit more. So you will definitely be seeing more decaling videos from me in the future. That wraps up this video, guys. Don't forget to let me know what you think of these decaled clone troopers, and as always, if you like the video, don't forget to leave me a big thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing so you won't miss out on future content. But until next time, happy building.